Welcome to Fast Keto. I'm your host, Ketogenic Girl. Hey you guys, welcome back to Fast Keto. This is part 2 of my special Q&A episode kind of theme that I'm doing this week. And in this episode, I delve into a few questions, especially talking about sugar addiction and how to quit sugar. I mentioned my free ebook, which you can go ahead and grab at ketogenicgirl.com under free ebook. And I have some tips on there on how to quit sugar. And also, of course, as a part of my 20-day Ketogenic Girl Challenge, you have lots of guidance in there on not only just doing keto, having the support and ongoing support and community of having a keto guide and coach and having me there with you, but there's also a lot of information too in there and support on quitting sugar as well. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode, which is part 2, and be sure to head over to ketogenicgirl.com. Check out some of the free resources there, including my free ebook and also the 20-day challenge if you're interested in that. All right, guys, let's dig into this week's episode. I had about 160 questions that were posted here. I'm definitely not going to get to all of them, but I'm going to get to the ones that I get asked the most often because I know they will be the most helpful. Number one question, I get this every day. What sort of exotic or unorthodox meats can you suggest for the adventurous keto eater? Okay, I probably don't get that question all the time, but it was a hilarious question posted, and I felt like I had to answer that. Kangaroo or zebra would definitely be extremely adventurous if you are wanting to try something exotic. I don't know what to say about that kind of question. I really think any kind of meat really is going to be keto, and it doesn't have to be wildly adventurous. I prefer to just mostly do eggs and canned wild salmon or cooked wild salmon, tuna, lots of fresh seafood, and those are my favorite protein sources. But if you want to do zebra or kangaroo, I mean, there's really nothing stopping you. It's probably just as nutrient dense as any other kind of meat. But since that's not a question that most of you have in mind, I will go to the next one. Which 99% keto chocolate do you suggest? Now, this question is right up my alley, Melissa. What numbers are you looking for when I test my glucose, and how long after each meal? Please and thank you. That's 2 questions in one, but I'll answer both of them because I get these questions all the time. Now, which is the 99% keto chocolate you suggest? I'm going to talk about chocolate quality here because there are some brands out there that people will try to do dark 90%, 99%, 100%, and they taste it and it tastes absolutely awful. It tastes like cardboard, and they're like, I can never enjoy 100% dark chocolate or 99. When it comes to dark chocolate, what really matters is the quality of the cocoa beans and how they're made, and the highest quality and doing single batch or small batch artisan style manufacturing of these bars makes all the difference. I have tasted some 100% dark chocolate bars that taste better than 85 or 90% dark chocolate that has sugar in it because the quality of the cocoa beans and the way that it is made is so much better. So sometimes it's worth just trying as many different kinds as you can. There's a few brands that I like in particular, but I really think it comes down to personal choice. So just go out there and be adventurous with your chocolate tasting. I mean, be a dark chocolate tester and you will find what works best for you and your palate. there are a few that I've found that I absolutely love, but it's because I've really worked hard on testing all the chocolate that I could. And let me tell you, it's a hard job. Someone's got to do it. And I had to do it so that I could figure out which were those 100% dark chocolate bars that I could eat and love and enjoy. And I have never looked back. My husband or family and friends will be having or nibbling on 85, 90%, or some of these bars that are full of sweeteners, whether natural sweeteners or, artificial sweeteners or just plain sugar. And I never feel any kind of deprivation. I'm so happy to be enjoying my 100% dark chocolate bar because I know it tastes better than those. And you have all these chocolate companies out there that use really cheap, low quality products. The bars are super cheap because they make them in huge batches and they just pump them full of sugar and sweeteners. Let me tell you, if you try a really high quality dark chocolate bar that's 99 or 100%, I find the 100% ones to be the best, highest quality ones. If you try one that has criollo beans that are usually from Peru, they have this fruity aroma and flavor and taste to them, and this richness that comes from the fats as well. That is so delicious. You will be amazed the flavor difference in something like that and your standard typical chocolate bar, which is the cheapest, lowest quality chocolate that you can find. Also, cacao is full of antioxidants and all these health benefits. It does have some oxalates in it. So if you're oxalate sensitive or you're sensitive to those kind of anti-nutrients, you need to be mindful of how much dark chocolate as well. If you are sensitive to caffeine, be aware that there is a lot of caffeine in dark chocolate. But if you're someone who is not sensitive to oxalates, if you don't have issues with, having some caffeine in your diet, and you really want to have the best tasting chocolate, try the 100% dark small batch with criollo beans from Peru or other kinds of beans, but that are really made in small batches that are really high quality. You will be amazed at how good it can taste. The other thing that is really helpful is, of course, reducing your sweetener intake or going off sweeteners. It will be 2 years for me. This May, my sweetener-free anniversary is coming up, and I tried it by just doing one single day, which I didn't know that I would be able to do without having stevia with me. One day. I didn't know if I'd be able to do it. And I said, if I do one day, I can do a week. And at the end of that day, I knew that I could do 2 days. And at the end of those 2 days, I knew I could do another day. And I took it one day at a time. And the hardest part really is the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days of giving up or quitting anything. Once you get past that initial inertia, that's what you need the most energy for, is that initial starting. Once you get past that inertia, you have momentum. You can keep going. You can get rolling. It's the same thing when it comes to anything in life. It's the initial energy that's needed that is the most. Maintaining and staying on course requires energy, for sure. But it's the first days initially of doing keto, of doing low carb, of quitting sugar, of quitting alcohol, of quitting anything that you're trying to quit or change, quitting smoking. I've quit all of those things. And I can tell you personally, from quitting smoking, from quitting sugar, from quitting sweeteners, these are the hardest things that I've ever had to go without in my life. And it's always those first few days. It's that initial energy. Once you get a day behind you, you get this momentum and you get this energy burst from the fact that you've gotten a day done. And I really think it's important to just take it, as they say, one day at a time, because trying to say, I'm going to quit this, insert whatever in the blank, for the rest of my life is so daunting. that even just the thought of quitting sweeteners for a week was very daunting for me. But I noticed that I had this dependence on it. I noticed that I couldn't leave the house without having some stevia or stevia, depending on how you pronounce it, with me. These little stevia tabs that I would take, I would add it to my coffee. I would add it to water with lemon juice to make lemonade when I was out. I just needed to have it on me. And it was the fact that I needed to have it on me and the fact that I was using it, quote unquote, using it, that I knew that I wanted to experience life, total freedom from it. And let me tell you, after a few days, a week gets really easy. After a week, it gets even easier. I mean, it's really the first 1 to 3 days that is the hardest, going off of sugar or sweeteners. And once you get a week under your belt, you really are good to go because you start shifting so much your palate. You start shifting your habits. It's really, like I said, the energy of that initial momentum, but also breaking the habits and creating new habits. And I used sweeteners, initially artificial ones, to first get off of sugar, and also having a keto diet and low carb diet full of healthy fats really, really helped. Having those keto treats and things to help me initially get off of sugar. I replaced a lot of the sugar and the kind of typical foods that I ate that were high in sugar with keto treats that were high in healthy fats. And that makes a huge difference because they are enjoyable to eat. They're, palatable. You have something that you can have as a replacement. I really think it's important to have just something you can sub out as a direct replacement, because you're still going to have the desire and the habit, and you might still have the trigger too that initially gets you there. There's all these other things that help along the way, like mindfulness and yoga and being aware of what sets off your triggers and what makes you want to have those things, and what is it that you're thinking or feeling or experiencing when you have the desire to have those things. There's so many great strategies that help with that. I talk more about this in my free ebook, which you can go and grab at ketogenicgirl.com under free ebook. You can download it, and I have a section on helping with going off of sugar, of quitting sugar or sweeteners. Really going off on a wild tangent here, but I really want to talk about this because I get this question all the time and about quitting sugar and sweeteners. I'm so excited that my 2-year no sweetener anniversary is coming up because it has made the biggest difference for me in terms of resetting my palate to being more savory, where I can taste the sweetness in everything. I can taste the sweetness in eggs. I can taste the sweetness in vegetables. There is sweetness in almost everything. And you will notice as well that the longer you chew something, so for example, if you have dark chocolate, the longer you chew it, and it's the same with vegetables, the sweeter it gets. It's the same thing with a cracker because the amylase enzyme is being released in your mouth in the first phase of digestion. And during that phase, your amylase is breaking down starches into sugars. It's starting that process. And so the more they get broken down, the sweeter effect there will be. So the sweeter things will taste. And you'll notice, like, if you first put a cracker in your mouth, it doesn't really taste that sweet. But once you have really broken it down, it just tastes sweeter and sweeter and sweeter. The same goes for any starch, any kind of food that has carbs in it. So that's a really long answer to which is the 99% keto chocolate that you suggest, but I hope you got something out of it, because the other question I get all the time is about quitting sugar and sweeteners. And I did a post today asking people, what are the biggest obstacles that you face in doing keto or doing low carb? And the answers that is being chosen the most is, just quitting sugar, quitting sweeteners. And I know it's very difficult to do. I've done it myself. And the freedom on the other side of it is so awesome. Now, if I want like a lemonade, I'll just do some sparkling water with lemon juice or hot water with lemon juice, and it tastes like hot lemonade. And I can taste the carbs and the sweetness in that lemonade without having to add any sweeteners to it. And it just feels so good to not have that dependence, not have sweeteners in my life. And I'm just really excited about it. As you can tell, I'm really passionate about it. I do think that having those sweeteners is really helpful to help make the transition. Having healthy fats is really helpful to make the transition off of them. Like I said, I had to get off of sugar. I used first artificial sweeteners, then I used natural sweeteners to get off the artificial sweeteners and sugar, and then I eventually just went without any sweeteners and instead did keto treats that are sweetener free. I'll do more episodes and posts about that in the future because I know it's an area of interest. But the second part of that question was, what numbers am I looking for when I test glucose and how long after each meal? Please and thank you. So, Melissa, it's a great question. I really recommend that most people just test fasted blood sugar if you're doing it at home. I love blood glucose testing because I think that this health technology is out there and there's no reason why we shouldn't be utilizing this. We're soon going to have contact lenses that will be able to give us real-time feedback on what our blood sugar is doing just in response to living, in response to fasting, in response to eating, in response to exercise. We will be able to understand and learn so much more about our bodies through this technology. But the fact that we can do this now already on demand, just using a $17 or $18 glucose meter that you can buy at Walmart or online and just get the glucose strips. You don't need to get the ketone test strips. And you can test your blood sugar. So the average person's blood sugar when they're on a standard American diet, when it is fasted, is around 100 milligrams per deciliter. When you start doing low carb, you will notice that it will go below 100. So if someone is doing a test at a lab and they're doing fasted blood sugar and they have a fasted blood sugar of over 110 milligrams per deciliter, that can be a very, very premature indicator of pre-diabetes or some kind of metabolic syndrome in the form of insulin resistance. It can also be a fluke because cortisol, the dawn phenomenon, and stress hormones can raise our blood glucose. So we don't want to be relying on that. But if you are testing every day, you can start tracking trends. You can see what you're trending at. What is your personal baseline at? And you might be doing low carb or keto and have higher blood glucose. It doesn't mean that you're not succeeding. It could just mean that it's a stress response, that you need to incorporate more stress reduction activities into your life. There's so many different aspects to this, so it's important not to get too caught up just in arbitrary numbers. But I do think that testing, just like weighing yourself, is a really great way to get feedback and data that can help you in getting to your goals. So as I said, if you're on a standard American diet, the average person has about 100 milligram per deciliter fasted blood sugar. So once you start reducing your intake of starches, you will notice that your fasted blood glucose probably will be below 100 if you don't have any stressors or cortisol response or other things that are affecting you. All right, guys, I know that you care just as much as I do about feeding your families the most nutrient-dense, high-quality food and meats, and also being able to save money and be on a budget. That's why I love ButcherBox. It saves you time and it saves you money by not having to go to the store and shop. And you also get incredible deals. They have a brand new promotion that is running in March, and it is for anyone who signs up that is a fan of Fast Keto. You can go to butcherbox.com/Fast Keto, and if you sign up, you will get free ground beef for life, plus $20 off for signing up using my link, and that's butcherbox.com/Fast fast keto. You get free ground beef for life. That's 2 pounds of free ground beef in every monthly ButcherBox order that you get for the life of your membership. Now, this is a great way to save money, save time, and be able to feed your family nutrient-dense food. So check out the link. I'll put it in the show notes as well. It's butcherbox.com/fast keto. If you reduce it further and you are getting yourself into ketosis, you'll probably notice that number is under 90 milligrams per deciliter. And I notice this tends to be the average for people once they start seeing ketones of above 0.2, 0.3. The optimal range for testing your ketones is anywhere between 0.5 millimolar to 3.0 millimolar. So that's really the optimal range of the sun initially, but I could get into the weeds about that. So I'm going to go to the next question. I've been on keto for 8 months. I feel great, but I can't get my hair loss under control. I drink bone broth, etc., and it helps some, but still losing hair. So this was from V Gaubert 001. Now, this tends to be a one or two factors. A lot of times we will notice differences in our cycles, and you will experience hair loss about 2 to 3 months after making a big change in your diet. If you've been eating a certain way for a long time and you make a big change, your body will react in lots of different ways. It can be a temporary thing, but if it's something that is ongoing, I would definitely see your doctor about it, see your dietitian, see a professional about it. It can be that you're not getting enough protein because protein is keratin. Sorry, hair is keratin, which is protein. So we need protein in order for our hair to be strong, our nails to be strong, for our bones to be strong, for all of our biological material to be healthy and strong. We need protein, and we need to be getting adequate protein. So sometimes on keto, we can overly restrict our intake of protein in order to get into that fat-burning, fat-fueled state. But I found that people will tend to see higher ketones if they have lower protein, but that's usually because they're just eating less calories altogether. It really is important to make sure that, you're getting the right amount of protein. Keto is an adequate protein diet with healthy fats, and it really comes down to starch control and having a low intake of starch and carbohydrates. So I wouldn't worry so much about, overeating protein, especially if you're having any kind of hair loss or issues with like nail growth and hair strength. You can experiment with adding more protein to your diet. I have gone all the way up to almost 200 grams of protein per day, and I still was in ketosis. And I still maintain a higher than average protein intake, and I'm not super active. So if you're an active person, you might need to try supplementing even more with more protein, with more collagen. Bone broth is great, but you can get collagen supplements that you just add into your coffee. I do collagen coffees all the time. So it's really, really important. Anytime I see the hair loss question, it usually is an indicator of not enough protein. So you can try that out. And as always, consult with your doctor or dietitian for any kinds of questions. If you have any health concerns about, why you might be experiencing hair loss, it could be unrelated to your diet as well. So next question is from Stacy. More details on interpreting blood glucose and ketone results. I have your book, Keto Essentials. I read it. I've looked back through your podcast. Should I only test fasted? Should I test after I eat for like a week? I'm so curious. Maybe I'm just overanalyzing it. So I kind of answered this question a little bit before in my previous one, but you can also check out my free ebook at ketogenicgirl.com. I have some information in there on testing. In my program, the 28-day Ketogenic Girl Challenge, I also have a lot of detailed information about testing specifically, and it comes with unlimited support and coaching from me for any questions that you have about testing, about keto in general, but also specifically about testing. But right here, I can just say that the best thing really is, as I said, is to test fasted in the morning. So after you wake up, say in about the first 30 minutes of waking up, but before showering. For some people, just standing in the shower is a metabolically stimulating activity. It's better to do it sort of like right after you've woken up, before you start moving around a lot and, taking a shower and all that. So somewhat within the first 30 minutes of rising, and you really don't need to test after eating, I would say, unless you're testing a particular food or you just want to geek out on data and learn and see different trends, like how does your blood glucose do after meals at this amount of protein, and then with 10 grams less protein, with 10 grams more protein per day, 20 grams more, you can test and see how your body is reacting and responding, and then also just refer to the average ranges. So generally on keto, your blood glucose is going to be at or below 90 milligrams per deciliter when you're fasted in the morning. Some people have it a little bit elevated, like between 90 and 100. If you're over 100, you're probably not in ketosis. If you're over 110 in the morning every single day, you might want to get that looked at a lab as well, do a hemoglobin A1C and have them test it professionally, because sometimes meters don't work as well. Sometimes the blood test strips can be expired. There's so many different things. Next question, Catherine Skaggs. Could you address IBS while doing keto? So I have a great podcast that is done fully on this topic. It's a total deep dive into this. It's with Dr. Paul Mason. It's called Fiber Myths, and it's one of the best episodes of Fast Keto. I noticed for myself, I had, a lot of issues. I had ulcerative colitis. I still have flare-ups now if I have gluten accidentally, or if we eat out at a restaurant and there's gluten in the food. I will get, about 2 days after we eat at that meal, I'll have searing pain in my abdomen for several minutes at different intervals throughout the day. And that, I would say, it has improved since going gluten-free many years ago and doing keto and adding collagen in. It has helped repair my gut lining, but I still will get very painful flare-ups if I do have gluten. So that for me was the biggest issue. The other issue that I personally had was a lot of bloating. And I found that I was always trying to cram in the highest nutrient dense vegetables and the ones that were recommended the most, all those anti-cancerous, cruciferous vegetables, broccoli, cauliflower, and cabbage. And let me tell you, I was eating so much of these vegetables, especially, and I was always dealing with bloating. Like, I just thought that bloating was what happened after you ate a meal. And it wasn't until I tried doing a full elimination diet, going zero carb last spring, that I was like, oh, you can eat food and not be completely distended for hours afterwards. So I had a lot of abdominal distension reaction to some of those vegetables. I think I was more sensitive to them. So I've kind of just readjusted the vegetables that I eat now. So I really think it's important to experiment with all kinds of things. There's different classes and categories of foods out there, especially vegetables, that, there's the nightshade family that tends to be really problematic for people, which is great for doing, elimination diets. There are other families and specific groups that include like garlic and onion and things that people tend to be more sensitive to, can be part of that family. There's people who are more sensitive to the cruciferous family, which I was. So it doesn't mean that I'm never going to have broccoli or cabbage or cauliflower, but I'm not going to have it every day because I don't want to be distended abdominally for hours all the time. And I just found that making kind of a shift towards, the lower starch vegetables that I was already doing, but not the ones that, caused all this bloating for me, I think that it can really be huge. And that podcast of Dr. Paul Mason is fantastic. He talks about how If you're trying to solve a traffic jam, you don't add more cars. And that's kind of what we do when we just try to add more fiber all the time. And a lot of people have seen their digestion improve with eating less fiber instead of adding more fiber in. But he's a medical doctor professional who has been studying this. He's been writing the latest academic textbooks on fiber and some of the fiber myths out there. And it's a really great episode. Check it out with Dr. Paul Mason. It's called Fiber Myths. If you really want to get into that in IBS, it's such a great question. Next question. I want to lower my kids' carb intake, but not to keto levels, as I want to keep their vegetable intake up as well as some fruit. If fat intake is high, protein is medium, and carb is low, but not keto low, would that put a child or adult in a perpetual state of keto flu or tiredness, as they're not in ketosis but still having lower than average carb intake? I really am not informed or educated enough to ask this kind of question. I would ask and direct this question to a keto nutritionist, doctor, physician, or dietitian. There's some great ones out there. Ali Miller, in particular, specializes in being a keto and low carb dietitian, and she has kids of her own. She's a great person to ask this question to, as I just don't even know enough to even try to go there. So I would definitely redirect that question to Ali Miller. John Lemansky, I have him on the podcast all the time, also has kids and does keto and low carb. They're both excellent resources. I recommend following them and posting these questions for them as comments. And I know they are both awesome at getting back to people. So I would definitely do that. Dolly Mommy 60, do you have a food plan that is specific carbohydrate diet and keto compliant? My meal plans are all keto compliant, and that's a 28-day challenge. Meal plans, any of the ones that are at ketogenicgirl.com, you can check out there. I have the original 20-day challenge, which is a great place to start. It includes my coaching. All of the meal plans include my coaching and support as well in our members group. I have the phase 2 plans, which are a higher protein, lower carb, moderated fat approach for people who are more active and are really focused on building lean mass and accelerating fat loss. I have the build your day plans that are no cook plans. There's tons to choose from, even vegetarian version of the meal plans. You can check them all out at ketogenicgirl.com. Pilpa asks, with sugar alcohols, for some people it might contribute to sugar cravings. Does it increase blood glucose or affect ketones though? If your goal is just to be healthy and say improve your metabolic health, just live a healthy lifestyle, I really don't think that these are that problematic. If you don't really find that you have like a big dependence on them or anything. I know for myself, I really had a dependence on them. So that's why it was so important to me to make the shift to not having any sweeteners in my life. But if your goal is to burn fat and have weight loss via fat loss, you really want to rely on your body's sources of stored surplus energy, and that is fat. So our body stores surplus energy that we take in that is in excess of what we needed, say at a particular meal or a particular day, on a long vacation when there was abundance of food available and alcohol all day and night. Our body will store that extra that we had when maybe we weren't really moving that much during that time and we were eating a little bit more, and it'll store it in the form of glycogen in liver and our muscle tissues, which is chains of glucose molecules strung together. It'll also convert it into fat, and it will store fatty acids, which are a unit of glycerol with fatty acids attached to them, in our fat cells. So most people, when they're trying to lose weight and experience fat loss, they want to lose that stored fat that's stored in our adipocytes or fat cells. And the only way that the body can ever actually access that stored energy is when you create an energy need through a caloric deficit or an energy deficit, and you're also in a fat burning state. It's really when you have the two combined that you get the maximum amount of fat loss and weight loss. And that's why so many people see great results going on keto and low carb, because they're able to become a fat burner. They're able to deplete their stored sugar, their stored glucose in the form of glycogen from liver and muscles. And then they're able to access stored energy in the form of fat from fat cells. If this is your main goal, taking in, say, these kinds of sweeteners in other forms, you might not see an immediate reaction. If you're testing your blood glucose, you might be in ketosis, but just know that your body is going to be utilizing that as energy instead of utilizing your own stored energy. And if that is your main goal, you may still get to your goal, but just a little bit more slowly if you're using a lot of sweeteners. I find that most people that I interact with, they're doing keto and low carb because they want weight loss, they want fat loss, and they want to be free from depending on external food sources all the time. Hey guys, just taking a really quick break to talk about the 28-day Ketogenic Girl Challenge. If you're interested in doing a ketogenic diet for yourself, it's a great place to start. I teach you everything about how to follow a keto diet to get yourself into nutritional ketosis, and it includes 28 days of meal plans. It comes with weekly shopping lists, how to interpret results, how to test yourself, a complete guide to getting started on keto. If you've been keto for a while and you're just not getting the results that you want to in terms of your health or fat loss, or you are brand new to keto, the 28-day challenge is a great option because it also comes with my free coaching and support in our members Facebook group, and you can post any questions that you have about the meal plans, about keto, and I am there supporting you. We have an amazing community in our group because everybody in there is so excited about following keto, about having found something that really works well for them. And everyone in there is just so kind, caring, generous, and supportive. And it's a really fun place to be and hang out. So if you'd like more info on it, you can find it at ketogenicgirl.com. And it's the 28-day Ketogenic Girl Challenge. And now back to our interview. And when we are in a sugar burning state, we're really dependent on those external sources of sugar because we're not able to get into that fat burning state where we're burning our own stored energy. And it's really that food independence that can come when you are doing low carb and keto. It comes because you're able to burn your own stored surplus energy for your energy needs. Not for all of them, but for some of them. So some of the energy you're getting from your food intake, it's helping you have energy throughout the day, but some of it you're also getting from your stored energy. And it does this so efficiently when you're in low carb or keto. Some people I find can do great and get to their goals in an expedient time using these kinds of sugar alcohols, even though it still raises their blood glucose afterwards. But the biggest problem that I see with it is that it perpetuates cravings for sweetness. And one of the biggest obstacles that people have in getting to their goals really is fighting food cravings, dealing with, these food addictions that we develop over time that prevent us from being at, say, the fitness level or weight that we want to be at. And you really don't have to be living in the gym all the time, exercising all the time like a crazy fitness model or bodybuilder in order to just be at a healthy, great weight for yourself. But you do have to get into a fat burning state, and that's why, these sugar alcohols, I think that they're so great to help you get off of sugar. I probably wouldn't have done low carb or keto without them. It really helped me to make that transition. it depends on the person if it will increase your blood glucose or affect the state of ketosis for you. So that's why testing is so important, and trying different things out for yourself as an individual can be so, so helpful. Now, next question is, do you think that it's better to do keto without pausing or doing it in cycles in the long term? So I get a lot of questions about cycling in and out of ketosis, whether it's better for you to be cycling in and out. In my opinion, I think that it depends on what you think of being in a state of ketosis or not, because there's different opinions on it. I know that I believe for myself that it's a really natural state for us to have metabolic flexibility where we're able to access our stored energy in a post-absorptive state, and we're also able to burn carbs if we want to. It's being able to burn both that really puts you in the optimal state. Most people just never get into that fat-fueled state. They never tap into that natural, amazing ability we have to burn our stored surplus energy. And the only reason that we're able to store energy so well is so that we could burn it, so that we could burn it for when we needed it. And we're also very good at burning energy just as much as we are good at storing it. I think that it really comes down to your personal goals. If you are using, cycling in and out for different reasons, then if that helps you get to your goals, and I don't see why there would be an issue with it. I personally stay in ketosis all the time. It's just where I personally feel my best. But if someone wanted to do it for some reason, like they really enjoy eating carbs, there's nothing wrong with that. They like to be able to have days where they eat maybe a lot of bananas and fruit or sweet potato, or just maybe not care about restricting carbs. They want to approach things from more of a paleo perspective. There's so much room on the spectrum of low carb to do things in different ways. For some people, going low carb is just no longer drinking fruit juice and eating bread and potatoes. For some people, it's just reducing the amount of starches that they eat by a small amount. For other people, they need to do it more in order to get in ketosis. So it really depends on you as an individual, what your goals are, what your metabolic health is, what level of carbohydrate restriction gets you in ketosis or not. I just don't know that cycling is something that needs to be pursued for the average person who's doing keto, but I honestly don't practice it, so it's really hard for me to talk about cycling in and out of it, but I know there are some great resources out there. So I know Leanne Vogel with Healthful Pursuit. She is a wonderful person. I've had her on the podcast quite a few times, and I know that she does some carb cycling. I think Sean Minar, who has a Keto for Women show, also does some carb cycling. So these people would be great resources to ask about carb cycling, about doing carb ups. I know Leanne coined that phrase of carb ups and eating higher levels of carb. I personally do more protein ups because I really focus on getting in adequate to higher amounts of protein, eating a lot of healthy fats, and I really focus on getting my micronutrients from low starch carbohydrates. And I don't really miss carbs. For me, a lot of the picture has to do with food addiction. And so I feel better and I do better for myself personally when I stay away from higher starch or higher carb foods. But a lot of people don't have food addiction, food fixation, and don't come from kind of a food addiction space. So in that case, carb cycling and all these things, probably could provide great tools for people who have different goals. I know that some people talk about carb cycling and how it can be beneficial for people with different thyroid issues. You'd really have to ask someone who knows a lot more about it than I clearly do. So thank you for that question. I'm 62 years old. I started keto way of life 18 months ago. I've lost 60 pounds and I feel great. I am a tester and I've noticed that in the last few weeks, my blood glucose is high. I've always had some dawn effect with blood glucose about 101 to 104 in the morning. Lately, it's been going up to 109. And even after intermittent fasting until 2 p.m., still goes up by 110 to 115. I am measuring ketones, and I usually have ketone readings of about 1 to 1.5 suggestions. So it sounds to me like this is probably a stress or cortisol related response, but I wouldn't freak out about having blood glucose higher than 100. Sometimes it can also happen from eating higher protein. I really think it's important to go by how you feel overall and not get too worried about the exact numbers of being, exactly below this number. So many different factors, I mentioned this a little bit at the beginning of the podcast, can affect our blood glucose, and a lot of it is cortisol. If you feel good overall, that's what you really want to be measuring, is how good is your energy level? How consistent is your energy? How high and consistent is your mood? How do you feel? How are you loving life? Are you feeling fantastic? Do you feel that you are being well nourished by eating real whole foods? I really think that that should be the focus. If you're concerned about having blood glucose numbers that are going higher, I would definitely just work with a low carb or keto doctor. There's so many great ones out there. Dr. Eric Westman, Dr. John Lemansky. They're great resources for this kind of thing. But I do find that sometimes just freaking out and stressing about the numbers can raise your cortisol to the point where you're going to see higher blood glucose numbers. Sometimes not getting enough sleep will lead to having high blood glucose numbers. If you Google the dawn phenomenon, you can see that higher cortisol released right before waking up in the morning, it can give people higher blood glucose. It doesn't mean that you're not doing a great job eating real food, reducing your intake of sugar, of processed grains, reducing your intake of processed toxic vegetable and seed oils, and just focusing on prioritizing nutrient-dense foods. You could be doing a great job at that, and the numbers don't really matter at the end of the day if you're feeling great and you're nourishing your body well. If you're concerned about it, I would definitely see a doctor and get their advice on it. See if it could be stress related. It could be that there is something in your life that's stressing you out. There's so many things you can do, like meditation, yoga, walking, incorporate more exercise, and see if that makes a difference. Tinker and test and try different things to see what makes a difference. Is going to bed earlier. What about having dinner earlier in the day? A lot of people notice that if they close their eating window earlier in the day, say at 7 p.m., 6 p.m., 5 p.m., have dinner and finish it up by 5 or 6 p.m., and then don't eat until breakfast. Some of these things can make a big difference. Also, apple cider vinegar can also help. Sometimes I've seen with people who try adding in a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar to some water before bed. Cinnamon is also a natural spice that can help control blood sugar. There's all these different things you can do, but I definitely think that it's important to manage stress. And sometimes higher blood sugar can also be an indicator of some kind of allergy or food intolerance. So there's so many different variables that, you really can only find out for yourself at the end of the day. But those are some things that it could be tied back to. But again, check with a doctor if you're concerned, and you can have professional, blood panel work done and interpreted by a low carb or keto or functional medicine practitioner that understands the importance of measuring all of these things. Texas Silver Girl asks, how do I start to add some fruit back in without causing a spike in glucose or weight gain? I'm not really sure that I would be the best person to ask about this because I don't really eat a lot of fruit myself because of the fructose content. So I know that there are some great fruits out there. And for me, those would be avocados and olives and tomatoes, which are all technically fruits. So those are kind of the fruit that I focus more on, are fruits that have a little bit more of a macronutrient balance, especially avocados and olives are fruits, but they have fats in them as well. So they're better for your blood sugar and they don't have any fructose in them. I'm really just not the best person to ask about incorporating fruit, unfortunately. But you can also check out Dr. Sachin Panda. He's done a lot of studies at the Salk Institute, some of it about time-restricted eating, but also about fructose and how it's metabolized differently by the body. It's metabolized only by the liver. So there's some real reasons out there why fruit may not be ideal if it has a high fructose content. I know that the best other fruits are probably low starch berries, blueberries, strawberries, raspberries. All the berries tend to have a lower fructose content, and also limes and lemons. And as I mentioned, avocados and olives. So next question, Liddy sent, tips for staying the course. I've started and stopped a few times. I think that the biggest factor in staying the course is having support, and that's having a buddy who's doing it with you and having community and support to help you be accountable, but also feel normal and have friends and community around you to support you. It's one of the reasons that on the 20-day challenge, I've always had, ever since I started the challenge program, I've had the support group so that if someone needs a buddy, I'm there to be your buddy, but also we have this community out there. And it's so important to have that, because if you're going it alone, it's going to be so much harder to stay the course. And I think that one of the reasons that people actually get so many great benefits and results on keto is because of our ketogenic and low carb community on Instagram, on Facebook, on social media, on Twitter. We have such a strong community of people who are really well researched, who do a lot of research, who are really science-based, and who understand the importance behind removing sugar and processed grains and toxic vegetable and seed oils from our diet and focusing more on real food in order to have optimal metabolic health and prevent disease and pathogens and longevity. And so there's all these really intelligent people in the keto space that understand the importance of nourishment, of giving your body nutrient-dense foods. And I really find that to be the commonality between all the people that I interact with in our space. And I really think that because we have such a strong community, it helps people to be able to stay the course and do this. So if you're struggling with that, rely on our community. There's so many people out there who are posting their meals every day. If you're on Instagram, all the people that I follow do low carb and keto. I don't follow people who post, hyper palatable carby foods like donuts with sprinkles on them and frozen yogurt and all the foods that I used to be so addicted to. I don't follow them. So every time I go to Instagram and I open up my feed, I see someone doing a post about biohacking. I see someone doing a post showing their low carb dinner or breakfast. And it encourages me. And it has encouraged me for the last 5 years. It has helped me to have this community so much and to have and make friends and connect with other people. One of the best things that I ever did in, getting into this space is reaching out and connecting with other people in our space and sending people messages or encouraging other people or commenting on other people's posts and connecting and sharing and making friends. It wasn't always the most comfortable thing sometimes reaching out to people, but it pushed me outside of my comfort zone. And I have so many incredible friends in this space who practice this kind of lifestyle. And I think it's one of the biggest factors, because if you're trying to do this kind of lifestyle and live differently from everyone else around you, you're going to break. Like, you're just not going to be able to keep doing it if you're the only person and you have no support and you have no community around you and you have no accountability, because every single person around you is going to be wanting you to live the way that they do because it's human nature. And it's just so hard to make those changes lasting when every place you go and every social interaction that you have is some way related back to the standard American diet, this high carb, low to no fat lifestyle where, there's just such an emphasis on flavor and sugar and energy and, this hyperpalatability of food, as opposed to just nutrient density and focusing on foods that are going to keep your mood high and stable and keep your blood sugar nice and low and stable and not, spiking up and down and crashing all the time. And, just having healthy lifestyle, healthy mindset. There's so much to be said about this ketogenic lifestyle. It's really not just a diet. And we talk about this all the time, how it's a lifestyle, because it's about having a healthy mindset. It's about having this mindset shift where you're prioritizing giving your body all the building blocks it needs, all the nutrients it needs, essential amino acids, essential fatty acids, and all of the building blocks, as well as really great energy from healthy fats and low starch, high nutrient dense vegetables. You're focusing on the best foods that you could possibly give your body, but you're also removing foods that could detrimentally or negatively affect your body. So it's amazing what it can do for your health, how quickly it can affect and improve your health to give your body nutrient-dense foods. And I really think that you're going to set yourself up to succeed with surrounding yourself with people who are also doing this kind of lifestyle. There's so many awesome things like, outside of social media as well, like meetups that people do, low carb meetups, just community. And whether that's online community, whether it's in-person community, it's finding a friend, someone else who's interested in doing this with you that you can, share this lifestyle with. It's going to make the biggest impact on staying the course for you and getting the results that you want to get. And it's going to help strengthen you as well. So I also find that time helps, because the longer that you do this, the healthier and the better that you feel, the more motivational it is to keep doing it. And, the more strength and willpower you get, to choose to live life differently, choose to question the way that most of our society lives, and choose to live in a way that is going to be impactful in enabling you to be your best self so that you can give back the most to your community at large, outside of just the low carb community, our community as humans, as human beings on this earth, to be the best person that you can be for yourself, for your family members, for your friends, for your community. And it's going to have a ripple effect on the whole world in order for you to be taking care of your health and prioritizing nutrient-dense foods and eliminating the foods that take away from our health or, somehow take away from our quality of life because we're not living at our optimal. So as you can tell, I really believe in living your maximum potential. I feel that keto is one of the best biohacks. As Dr. John Lemansky says, it is the ultimate biohack. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I'm going to have to just keep doing these Q&A episodes because I love doing them. I know that there are endless questions when it comes to keto, and I really try to pick some of the ones that I get the most often and answer them for you. And I'm going to try to do this about once a month at least, because I know that there are so many questions out there. And if I can give my perspective or share something from my experience, that's helpful for one person or, a couple dozen people out there, or 100 or 1,000 people, if it gets, if it helps anyone out there, I'm thrilled that it helped you. And I'm so happy if you enjoyed today's episode. Go to Instagram and tell me what you loved about this episode. Tell me what takeaway you had. It makes my whole day so much brighter when I hear from people who not only love the podcast, but loved an episode and what their takeaway was from it, because I really try to always provide value and takeaways for people. And if one thing I said today had an impact on you, I would love to know what it was. But if you share it and comment it, someone else might see it too, and it might help or improve their journey. And we're all in this together. We're all sharing the things that we find the most valuable for us personally. We're all learning together. And it's so powerful when we as a community, not just in low carb, but global community as humans, come together, share things that have worked for us, that help us. And every single one of you listening to this has so much amazing information to share with other people that you've learned, whether it's in low carb or keto and other areas of your life. And it's just amazing to take time to share that and give back. And I love hearing what your takeaways are. So if you enjoyed that, leave me a rating, a review of the podcast if you ever get a moment. It makes such a huge difference for me, and it makes all the time that I put into this, just so worth it. But it means that I can do more of these episodes. The more ratings and reviews that I get, the more that I can take the time to do these each week. And I would love to also be able to do a couple of episodes a week. Maybe one day I could do an episode a day. Who knows? If the podcast just keeps growing in popularity, I've been so thankful for how well it's been doing. And it's all thanks to you. So thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing. If you enjoyed the episode, leave me a comment with your takeaway. Share it with someone that you love. Leave me a rating or review. It would mean the absolute world to me. So until the next episode, I hope that you have a fat-fueled rest of your day, fat-fueled rest of your week. Go out there and kill it, crush it, and catch you on the next episode. Thanks for listening, guys. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode, which is part 2 of the Q&A theme for this week. And head over to Instagram, leave me a comment on any takeaways you had, anything that really stood out for you, and let me know what you want to hear more of. And if you have a moment, leave me a rating or review on the podcast. It makes all the difference in the world for me to be able to create more free podcasts, videos, ebooks, resources, which I love doing. But I do need your support in order to help me grow. And you can do that by leaving me a rating or review. It makes a massive difference. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and head over to Instagram after. Leave me a comment on what you liked. A few disclaimers. By listening to this podcast, you agree not to use this podcast as medical advice, as I am not a qualified healthcare provider. The information presented on this podcast is for educational purposes only. Ketogenic Girl is not qualified to provide medical advice. Consult your own physician for any medical issues that you may be having. This entire disclaimer also applies to any guests or contributors to this podcast. Prior to beginning a ketogenic diet, you should undergo a full health screening with your physician to confirm that a keto diet is suitable for you and to rule out any conditions or contraindications that may pose risk or that are incompatible with the ketogenic diet. A keto diet may or may not be appropriate for you if you have any kind of health condition, whether known to you or unknown, so you must consult your physician to find this out. Anyone under the age of 18 should consult with their physician and their parents or legal guardian.